Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel. Well, today is Thirsty for Theory Thursday on Friday. And maybe many of you were wondering exactly why we shifted our usual day from Thursday to Friday. And that is because today is January 10th. And January 10th is a very important anniversary. Some of you may know and some of you may not know that in the late hours of January 10th, 1999, a young man, 17 years old, named Debi Hochstetler, was killed in a hit-and-run accident in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. And today we're joined by his mother, Debi Hochstetler. Hi, Debi.
Hi, Jeff.
So I know this is we appreciate you joining us today on our YouTube channel. First, we want to remind people of who Ricky was and play this quick slide montage for everybody.
Wherever I go, far away and anywhere, time after time, you always shine through dark of night, calling after me. And wherever I climb, far away and anywhere, you raise me high beyond the sky, through stormy night, lifting me above. Beneath His spirit, beneath His spirit, beneath His spirit, beneath His spirit. Far away beyond the sky, whenever I ride, far away and anywhere, you hear me call. When shadows fall, a light of hope showing me the way. And whenever I ride, far away and anywhere, you raise me high beyond the sky, through stormy night, lifting me up high. Beneath His spirit, beneath His spirit, beneath His spirit, beneath His spirit. Far away beyond the sky.
Well, we have a few guests with us today, in addition to Debi, just to make sure everybody knows who's on. We have Christy.
Hi, everybody.
And we have joining us from Australia, Kelly85.
Hey, how are you?
How you doing, Kelly? As a quick side note, we know we're all well aware of the disastrous fires that are happening all across Australia right now, and I just wanted you to know that the prayers of all of America are with everyone in Australia for their safety of themselves and their family. So please be safe out there.
Thanks, Big Jeff.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
So Debbie, if you don't mind, I think very often Ricky's name comes up in regard to the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases, but very often as a side note, simply to highlight possible corruption in the Manitowoc Sheriff's Office. But it's not very often that we have an opportunity to sit down with somebody who knew him like you and really get to understand who was Ricky, what did he like to do, and what type of person was he? Could you tell us what comes to mind when you think of your son?
Ricky was 17 when he passed away, and he had such a big heart of gold. And he cared so much about his friends and his family sometimes. but he was a typical teenager. When he was little, his big passion was Matchbox cars. Mom, will you play cars with me? Play cars with me. That's all he would say. And as he grew up, he became quite the big brother to his two sisters. And I remember one instance where a sister hit a moving vehicle, and he ran all the way home and to tell me, and she was okay. She didn't get hurt or anything, but his heart was just a beating, and he was so upset that his sister might be hurt. So I ran down there, and she was standing there with a smile on her face, talking to the lady that she hit. And I said, Ricky, I said, that was so nice of you to care for your sister. Well, that's not going to happen much, Mom. He kind of passed it off. So when he became a teenager, Ricky's father and I got a divorce when Ricky was about 8 years old. And his dad wasn't in the picture very much. So I kind of had to play mom and dad role. And he had some anger issues. We went to counseling. He tested boundaries to the point where when he was 16, I had to drop my sponsorship from his driver's license because he would get angry. And I was afraid that I didn't want him behind the wheel. So he loved rapping music. I never could understand it, but he loved it. And he did play football in high school, but didn't like it very well. And but he just adored his friends. He had so much love for his friends. And he liked helping at the haunted house in Manitowoc here as a volunteer, scare people. And I remember that October before he died, he came in my room and he sat on my bed and he said, Mom, I just had so much fun. And we talked about it, and he told me all the people that he scared, and especially about the men who acted like little babies, or and we just laughed about it. And I says, maybe that's something that you and I can do together next year. And he says, Mom, I would love that. So I ended up, after he had passed away, and I fulfilled our dream, and I went to the haunted house. And I feel he was right there with me. And I got to scare the big guys who thought they were macho. But he was hard to understand sometimes. He was hard to understand to get his point across on how passionate he felt about certain things, especially his friends. And they all came to his funeral, and they wrote poems and said such good things about Ricky, and it just really warmed my heart.
Did he have a girlfriend?
he had a girl that he absolutely adored. But I think it was one way. And she was just a super person. But he worried so much about her. And he was actually with her and his other best friend at his best friend's house having a pizza party and watching movies. And I think he really wanted her to be his girlfriend, but it just didn't work out that way. And we had long talks about that. And
Well, I resemble that remark myself. I mean, that's what, welcome to being 17 and a young man.
yes, but he did rebel against me occasionally, and they were pretty good fights. And but like I said, his heart of gold came through 2 weeks before he passed away. We were walking in the store, and he put his arm around me, and he kissed me on the cheek, and I looked at him. I said, "What's that for? What do you want?" And he started laughing, and he says, "Nothing, Mom." He says, "I just want you to know that I love you, and you've always been there for us. And I will treasure that for the rest of my life."
And that was very close to the time he passed.
2 weeks before he passed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So the night that he passed, it was really a special day for us because he got everybody up to do our Saturday morning chores. He wanted to go in and get a Nike hat. Of course, we couldn't find one. And then he was going to go to a friend's house to watch movies and have pizza. And I dropped him off, and he was walking away, and I just kind of had that feeling like, some warmth came over me, and he looked around, looked back at me, and gave me, "Why are you staring at me?" look. And I just secretly told him I loved him. And I kind of had an antsy feeling all night long. It's just, I want everybody home. The snowstorm was picking up. I want everybody home. And I got up and I looked out the window, and it's, "Why are you doing that, Deb?" He always calls if he wanted a ride. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll go out and see if he's walking just in case. And it's, no, he always calls. Well, I went to the kitchen to write a note. Check in when you get home. And it's, I didn't do that because I always hear him when he comes home. So I went to bed, and I heard him come in. Or so I thought, because I chuckled and thought, well, he's late at his curfew. He's not even going to put his stereo on so I can hear the boom, boom, boom of it. And then I went to sleep. And at 4 a.m, there was knocking at the door. But a little side note to that, I had a guardian angel that night. I was a first responder. But I was a first responder in the town next to us, Cleveland, Wisconsin. And on our pagers, we have 2 frequencies. It would be the whole Manitowoc County, or I could just put it on the Cleveland frequency, so I would just get the Cleveland calls. And had I not done that, my house would have been the first place for somebody to come and ask for help, or I would have heard it on the pager, and I would have gone out there to try and help. But it worked out better because the woman who came upon him, I think somebody else drove into the city to call the police. So I didn't even know. I was a third shift worker, and I had dark curtains in my room, and I didn't even know the fire trucks and the ambulances were parked right outside, right in front of my house with the lights going, and I never seen it. So I had a guardian angel that night to protect me because I would have wanted to go out and help. And could you imagine going out and finding your own son?
No, I cannot.
Yeah, I was blessed.
the accident itself happened within feet of your front yard?
His body came to rest about 200 yards away from my driveway.
Wow, incredible.
And then, of course, when they knocked on the door, Debbie said that there was an accident with Ricky, and I said no. I said he's in his room, and so I went up to his room, and he wasn't there, and it just all went from there.
And for clarification for the listeners, when you say Debbie, who do you mean?
Deborah Kakich, the Manitowoc County coroner at the time.
And were you friends with her before?
We were. I mean, not to the point where we would go out to eat, and stuff like that, but we would have chats on the phone, and because our two sons were friends, best friends, and her son was actually a pallbearer in my son's funeral.
And what was he over her house that night, or was that a different friend?
That was a different friend, yes.
I see.
He was over at his friend's Jeff's house. Yeah, with Jennifer. And I believe the parents were there too. So he knew the shortcuts home, and he probably thought rather than giving me a call to come and get him, he'd just hurry up and get home and sneak in his room and think that I didn't hear him, but I swear to God, I heard him.
And how far of a walk do you think it was from where he was back home?
I'm going to say maybe 2.5 miles.
So probably took him 20 minutes or so, half an hour.
Yeah, but he walked his friend home, Jennifer, and made sure she was home safe, and then he started walking home. But I just wish he would have called then.
Yeah. Probably that heart of gold again, wanting to give mom a break. How did the investigation progress? It's good that you didn't go out, but how, do you have any idea? What type of evidence was gathered that night, and what happened to it, and how everything moved on from there?
Well, I'm sure I'm going to miss pieces of it here and there, but in a nutshell, there were vehicle parts at the scene. He was on top of the car for 200 feet, dragged underneath, and then his body came to rest about 200 yards from my driveway. And the vehicle made no attempts to stop to see what they hit, and it traveled about 3 miles till it reached a stop sign, and there were still car parts there from the grill. Wow. And then they couldn't determine whether it went to the north, which would bring them back to Manitowoc, or to the south, which would be in Cleveland. And I might add that Cleveland had a junkyard there at the end of that road. And we had, the day of his funeral, somebody had found a car part at the end of the driveway and brought it up to the house. And my family called the sheriff's department, and they came out and they retrieved it. Mm-hmm. And eventually, I think it was 2 years ago now, I went in to view all the evidence that they had. And that car part that I was looking for wasn't there. So I don't know what happened to that. But
would you mind if I asked you a question about that part?
Sure.
Is the reason that they were able to find it on the day of the funeral is because there was a blizzard and the road got plowed and it was perhaps melting snow that revealed the car part? Is that kind of the circumstance?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
There were parts all for 3 miles, and we had even gotten a group together to walk the ditches to find more car parts because they said they needed a particular piece that had the number on it to further identify the vehicle, and we were told no, because of safety concerns, that we would be better off putting out the reward posters. So I should have insisted, but I didn't, and I'm going, okay, whatever I can do to help.
But if I can take one step back with regard to that comment, what safety concern are they talking about? I mean, have you never had people? And yeah, then what are they afraid? What's going to happen? Somebody's going to trip? Is the water deep enough for somebody to drown?
No, it was snow in the ditch, but they were afraid somebody was going to get hit. And they even had an officer out there that day that we were supposed to do it to make sure that nobody was doing it.
Yeah, right.
He was patrolling.
Do you find that odd?
Well, now I do. But at the time, no, because I totally believed that the sheriff's department was going to solve this case. And Lieutenant Bushman even sat at my table and got teary-eyed and said he's even taken this case home with him. He says, I want to solve it so bad for you, Debbie. And, I totally believed him, and my heart just went out to him, and I thought he was being a very caring person. But afterwards, I thought, why are they putting a lieutenant on a vehicular homicide? I would have thought it would have been a detective.
Yeah.
And, I didn't understand.
That is kind of odd. But, he wasn't much longer for the force either. He retired before 2005, so he wasn't around much longer, right?
No, he wasn't. And then it was handed to a detective.
What were they immediately able to identify from the parts that they found? Were they able to identify the make and the model?
They were able to narrow it down between I believe it was an 85 to 88 Chevy van, Suburban, or truck in that 85 to 88 vicinity. I'm pretty sure that was the years that they thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then for, oh my gosh, I can't remember, 14,820 vehicles, I could be wrong on that, were investigated, matching that description. But they didn't have a database to put it in on who checked what vehicle. It's just basically they took the list of the vehicles and they ripped off sections and said, you take this, you take this, you take this. And they just checked off, I went and checked that person. And they had volunteer sheriff's deputies or whatever helping with this too. So, and the surrounding counties. So, I don't know if I have questions as to whether some of the vehicles have been missed, overlooked. But if they would have had that database, they would have been able to have that on record that it was in fact checked.
Yeah. So it seems to me that the Department of Motor Vehicles would have such a database. Is that the type? Or are you talking about an investigative database where people will go and enter the fact that this particular person was queried or this particular vehicle was checked?
Yeah, no, the DMV provided them with the list.
Oh, okay.
The DMV was not involved at all otherwise. But if they would have been able to even get the Wisconsin Department of Criminal Investigation involved in it from the get-go, maybe they could have helped them set up a database.
Yeah. Well, it just seems to me that in an incident like this, it's nice to sort of pare down the number of possibilities by asking yourself, does the owner of one of these vehicles have a reason to be in the vicinity of your home on that particular night? And certainly that's not necessarily definitive, because lots of people have lots of reason to be lots of places, but it certainly can help you narrow the list down. Was there any events going on in the vicinity of your house that night?
There was. About a mile and a half down is a place called the Club Bilmar. It's not that now, but it changed names. But they had two parties going on there. And one was for Cops grocery store, which people think it was a Cops party, Christmas party, but it was a grocery store party. And the other one was Manitowoc Ice. They make ice machines.
And do we know any of the attendees at the party potentially who drove such a vehicle?
Well, we don't know about what kind of vehicle they drove, but there was a former sheriff officer there with his wife who worked at Cops, and that's what people are saying that killed my son.
Right.
So I mean,
so we had a brief conversation before the podcast, and you were pretty clear that you don't know who killed Ricky. Right. There are some suspicions, but you don't know who did this, right? So everything we're doing now is speculation.
Correct. And based off of what former officers and detectives have said, but there's no proof.
Right. So we don't know anything for sure. We're not making any accusations. We're just calling out the certain facts as we understand them.
Right. Exactly. I can't make accusations. I can't get tunnel vision because I'm just waiting for the person to come forward and tell me what happened.
Who knows something, because they saw it with their own eyes or heard it with their own ears, to come forward and finally give you some peace in knowing what happened.
Exactly. I don't like to use the word closure because my son will always be with me. But I would like this person to come forward and help me finish my healing process because I have not reached the anger. I don't have anybody to be angry with or even get a chance to. But first and foremost, I would like this person to come forward and talk to me anonymously if it's okay. I don't have to tell anybody, and tell me what happened and at least give me the choice to forgive or not. And I think I have it in my heart to forgive because I know it was an accident. And I'm sure they're scared. I don't understand why they wouldn't come forward, but I'm sure it's because of fear. Nothing's going to happen to them because the statute of limitations is up. I asked Detective Link that one time, I said, statute of limitations on a homicide? He goes, no, it's a vehicular homicide. And I said, what's the difference? He says, a car was involved. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you must think I'm an idiot. Because a homicide is a homicide. So, but I guess the statute of limitations is up, they say. Unless somebody were to come in and say, oh, yes, I did it intentionally, and then they could be prosecuted. But, I'm not even looking for this person to go to jail. Just tell me what happened. Give me that chance. I need the answers.
It's the not knowing that makes it the worst, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
I understand that completely.
There is one question I do want to ask this person is why did you leave him there to die alone? Because I don't care who you are. No one deserves to die alone.
Right.
I agree with that. I think that I'll be honest. I honestly do not know much about Ricky's case. I know a little bits and pieces. That's why I wanted to be here tonight to learn some more. And as a mother, that would probably be the worst part for me too, the not knowing. And how could you have possibly left him there?
So were there any developments in the case at all beyond the first preliminary identification? They did a search, without a database of these vehicles. Any developments at all? You must have gotten 1,000 tips. If people love to call, right, when things like this happen. Whether they actually know anything is one thing, but
They whittled all the tips down. No, it's not relevant, not relevant, not relevant. They found a van that had hair underneath it, and he asked me what color Ricky's hair was, and because they found hair underneath the van, and I said, well, unless they got it from his armpits, I said he had his head shaved that day. It was from an animal, but they had headlines stating that they found a van of interest. And then when they retracted it, it was only a little paragraph. When they, so people to this day think that they caught the person because it was in the paper. It was a van.
Oh.
So that's why it's important to get the word out, because they did not catch the person. But then they had, I've even had tips throughout the years, that I had turned over to the sheriff's department, and they say they're following through on them, but I'm not 100% sure. But they're only investigating now if they get a tip.
When they do investigate a tip, aren't they required to write a report about that?
They are, yes. But I just got the reports for the first few years. I don't know when the reports were requested for the site or not, but I can't remember what year that was, but I have not received any more since then. I asked for the reports when I went in to do all of their evidence, and I got 109 pages, and I had to pay for it. And John Ferrick, who wrote that book, Wrecking Crew, he has a paragraph in there about Ricky. And he got over 1,000 pages. So I don't know why they wouldn't give me everything, but that's where the $500 would have come up. And another key piece of information, too, is I have been asking and asking and asking if they've got the paint chips analyzed. And I keep being told it's not a high priority case. It's in Milwaukee, and a particular person is working on it when she gets time, and it's been months and months and months and months.
Oh my God! Do you remember her name? Her name wasn't Colleen, was it?
No, I'm thinking her first name was like Ruby or Rose.
Okay.
I don't know what the last name would be. But I was also told when I called down to the crime labs several years ago that we can't analyze those chips. We don't have the equipment to analyze those chips, that it needs to be sent to Canada. And if we did have the chips, we couldn't tell you anyways, because only the investigating agency has privilege to that information. So I called Canada. And they said, we have received nothing from Manitowoc, nothing at all, no correspondence, anything. And then I called back the detective and
into it. Well, then that was Colburn, and he retired. So now Jason Yoast is on the case, and I've already talked to him 3 times over the last 8 months, and I'm due to call him again because he's not telling me what's going on with these paint chips. I want proof that these paint chips exist. I want proof that they have those paint chips in Milwaukee. Maybe they got the equipment to use it or to test them with. I don't know. Nobody will tell me. So
Is this
Maybe
is
they
this
disappeared.
something?
I don't know. There's film,
I mean,
picture film that disappeared. There was 4 rolls taken on the accident scene, and on the way down or at the autopsy. And they have maybe about 6 pictures in their possession. I says, what happened to the 4 rolls you had? Oh, we don't know. Really?
this is starting to sound a lot more familiar. The deeper we get into this, that evidence is just disappearing on us right and left. So, Debbie, with regard to the paint chips, if you could analyze the paint chips, what information could be garnered from them?
The color of the vehicle, and possibly narrow down the search of the make and model based on what formulas they used for paint.
Now, there must be no shortage of these paint chips. You said that they were finding little pieces of the car from your house all the way to the stop sign, which was 3 miles away. Why is it that we can't get one of these paint chips and crowdsource the testing of it somewhere else? Is that something only the police and the FBI have the capability to do, or are there independent labs who can do that?
I have no idea how that works. But yeah, that's a good idea. I've never thought of that. But see, now the Department of Criminal Investigation came in too. And
they're a federal agency.
They're state.
State, yeah, okay.
The state. Yeah. And they had to be invited in. And Link was on the case at the time. And he said that, no, they won't come in because it's they only deal with homicides, not vehicular homicides. And I said, here we go again. And so I called the state and I said, why won't you come in? And I talked to the head woman of the department. And she says, Debbie, let me look. She says, we have heard nothing from Manitowoc County, only you. I said, really? She said, yeah, but we need to be invited in order to come in. So I called Link and I said, hey, who did you talk to in the State Department? And he goes, oh, he says, that was so long ago, I don't remember. And I said, well, better yet, here's the woman's name. She's the head of department. Here's her number. She's expecting your phone call. He goes, all right. So a few minutes later, he called me back and he says, I have to send a written request in for them to come in and look at the case. And all I wanted was a fresh eyes approach. That's all. Within 2 weeks, the State Department had somebody in here. And I guess from what the agent told me, they were not very well received. So, but the information that he had when he came and did an interview with me, he says, Debbie, he says, statistically, he said, whoever killed your son is in this file folder. And I said, is that all you got? He goes, yeah, that's all they gave me. And I said, 2 boxes full of evidence.
It's just so. What does it say to you that the DCI agent who showed up at the Manitowoc Sheriff's Office was not well received?
They asked. He's a state agent, and they asked him for his qualifications, and he kind of thought that was funny. But I think that they had the impression that they were coming in to step on their toes and tell them how to run the case, and that wasn't a fact. They were coming in to help, aid them, and kind of give a fresh eyes approach.
Mm-hmm. And about what year was that, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, I would have to look that up. I am not sure at all.
About 5 years, about a year, about 10 years?
Oh, this was about 2 to 3 years after he was killed.
Okay. But even so, right? I mean, they're doing such a great job not finding anything that why not relish the help instead of push it away? You know what I mean? It doesn't. Yet another thing that doesn't make sense, right?
I know. And I've been told from Peterson, who was a former sheriff, he says, well, maybe the person thought they had a deer. And I said, come on, a deer, he was on the hood of the vehicle with a green coat on for 200 feet or so. You can't tell me it was that snowy that night that they couldn't see the green coat. But
Yeah. Unless you're stinking drunk, you're going to know you didn't hit a deer.
But they made no attempts to stop based on the tire tracks. None.
Wow.
I don't think that would have saved him, but at least be with him.
That's right. So aside from the paint chips, are there any other leads that you're trying to follow up on? Are there other pieces of the car that you could perhaps have analyzed by automotive experts? At this point, do you trust the people who did the vehicular forensics, that there couldn't be more information? I mean, being around people that know cars, it's like, oh yeah, this one from the 1985, that's got the little twist there. And, others don't have that.
Well, they called the former sheriff. He was a jailer at the time. Rob Herman. They called him in as a special investigator because he took a class for vehicle accident reenactments.
Mm-hmm.
And he put what car parts that they had, and he drove around with them that day. And he said he went out to the junkyard that his family owns and tried to compare them to some of the vehicles out there to find a description. So I don't think the chain of evidence or the protocol was met, but.
Is there an ability, if you asked for these pieces, would they give them to you?
No, because they say it's not a closed case.
That's very interesting to me because it seems to me that since the statute of limitations has passed, it's cold. And you could do nothing even if you did find out who it was. That how you get more closed than that?
Right. We just need one person to come forward because somebody knows what happened besides the person that killed him. And I mean, you just don't have damage to your vehicle like that. I mean, whether it be a spouse, a child, I mean, seeing the vehicle damage and then hearing the headlines on the news the next day, even if the person was drunk and didn't realize they were doing it, they'd surely see their vehicle was all smashed up. And
yeah, you can't hide
come to the conclusion, well, something happened. I mean, somebody knows something. And that's who I appeal to, is that spouse or family member or friend, that would come forward and say, hey, you need to talk to this person.
I also saw that the Manitowoc dispatch was requested as well in your Freedom of Information Act request that got you the documents. Did you have any luck getting that?
No, they said they don't have them.
Oh, yeah, a shock to everyone who's listening to this, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I thought. You don't have them, but you're supposed to keep record of them?
Yeah.
They have been requested. That's for sure.
Right. Is there a master evidence list associated with this case that could be requested? It's at least on the, for example, on the Stephen Avery case, we have that master evidence list, and we know the evidence tag numbers of all the photos. It'll cost you 50 cents for each one, or however much for each one, but at least it's listed where, what they have. There are certainly photos they took that we don't know about. But is there a reference document available for that?
That I have no idea. I would have to look in my paperwork to see if it, they wouldn't give it to me without a request.
Yeah. In the in the Avery case, they found out this year because somebody who requested the master evidence list got the last page of it that nobody had gotten before, and turned out that's certain key evidence had been returned to the family, and they only found out about it this year when they accidentally sent somebody the last page of that they hadn't sent to anybody before that, and the years that people have been looking into it. So there are often conscious efforts to hide information from this police department. I don't know why they would do that unless there was some culpability.
That would be a request that I wonder if they would give that to me. I'd have to talk to that Larry Ladina. They don't seem to like talking to me very much.
Yeah.
And,
if they were interested in solving the case, it seems to me if they're looking for a center of energy to leverage, it would be you, right? If they were really interested in solving.
I know, right? And you would think, just having a heart, they would call me periodically and say, hey, we don't have any news. How you doing? Whatever. They don't. They don't keep in touch with me at all. Now, Joe said that he would call me back as soon as he heard something. And it's been several months since I talked to him, so I'm thinking he didn't hear anything yet. But, I need to know that those paint chips are in Milwaukee Crime Lab. I need proof, because really it's come to enough is enough.
Do you have a lawyer?
Do I? No.
Yeah.
No. I don't see a reason to get an attorney because there's no proof. There's no one to pinpoint this on. If we had the proof, well then then I could see getting an attorney. But I've talked to a private investigator, and he said, since there is no proof, he said it would be a waste of your money.
Right.
However,
we have access to an attorney through the Foul Play YouTube channel, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask him a question. And the reason I brought up an attorney was not necessarily because there's a need to make an accusation, but because what would it take to answer your question as to whether these paint chips are actually in the Milwaukee Crime Lab? They can't just hide information from people, but sometimes you have to sue them to get information, and that would be what an attorney would help you do.
Oh, I see. I'm going to ask him for the proof and take it from there. I'll see what he says from there. See, I've been pretty lenient on that. I mean, people think, well, if it was me, I would go in there screaming every day, find the killer. And what is that going to do? They're just going to give me the same answers over and over and over again. And for the first, I would say, 5 to 7 years, I felt I needed them as an ally. So they would give me the information that they're getting. And now I don't think they are an ally. Well, and the reason why is because when I went in to look at the evidence, I had my phone on record, and it wasn't intentional to cause any, it was just for my own personal use. So, because I have a habit of forgetting things, and I wanted to make sure that my ex-boyfriend heard exactly how the conversation went, instead of saying, well, did they say this? Did they say that? And it was just for my own personal use. Well, then John Ferris got involved with USA Today, and my ex-boyfriend brought it up that I had this tape. And I let him listen to it. Well, he ended up and used it. So they're not too happy with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Did they threaten you with legal action?
No, they just weren't too. As a matter of fact, the last meeting that I had with Detective Yoast was to give him some information that I received off of Facebook, and he wouldn't even bring me back to his office. He stood out in the lobby and he took pictures of or recorded the text message.
Right. Ugh. So bad.
I know.
It breaks my heart that you've had to go through this. It's people should be helping you. There should be legions of people lining up to help research on this case. There are a bunch of things that I've thought of that could possibly be done. And I'm looking forward to helping work on this case, to the extent that we can, and at least throw out ideas in the future.
Well, I tell you, any help is very much appreciated. And there has been so many opinions, suggestions, comments through the online communities that the more people that work on it, the better, because what one person doesn't think of, another person will.
Right. Yeah, I think so. The more eyes, the better. Which is why I find it very strange that the DCI was not met with open arms on this.
No, they weren't. The way he talked about it, it was quite comical. Eric Savorsky or something like that. When he came to my house, it was quite comical. The lack of reception, they weren't very welcomed.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. To me, it stinks of a cover up, right? You haven't had a solid lead in 2 years. Agency comes in with the resources of the state who can possibly help, and what do? You lift up the rug and sweep the dirt underneath, right?
Right.
So
right.
It's just it's beyond the pale. To me, it stinks of a cover up. I wasn't there either, so I don't know for sure. But every single action that you've described to me, starting with the refusal to let your search party search the grounds for a piece of evidence that could possibly have helped identify the car, which I strongly suspect may be the VIN, a plate with the VIN number that was under the passenger side tire. To potential police activity in the nearby, to the not helping where they should, not telling you where the evidence is, not letting you get your hands on it. It's just not how the way things ought to work in the United States of America, right? It just speaks of cover up and corruption to me.
Right, and we wanted to walk the ditches and look for the further evidence because I think it was like maybe a week and a half after we buried my son. I was coming home from Manitowoc because we lived out in the country a little bit, and the fire trucks were at the corner by me with their lights on, and the sheriff's department was there. And I drove by and I said, "Is everything all right?" And the officer said, "Well, we're just looking for some parts to a vehicle that was in an accident here a little while ago, a week and a half ago or so." And I goes, "Oh, okay." And so I went home and I looked out my window and I was watching them, and should I go up there? No, yes. I talked myself into going up there and asked him if there's anything that I could do to help, because they were spraying the snow down looking for these parts. And of course he says, "Yeah, you can help. We'll hand you the parts and you can put them in the bucket." That's nice of you. So they started handing me parts, and I'm putting it in the bucket, and then all of a sudden they hand me the lens for my son's glasses. And I looked at it and then, I don't think I can do this anymore.
That must have been so hard. I'm so sorry that happened.
Oh, it was. And then I walked home, and that's when my friends and I decided to get a group together to walk and try and find more evidence. So,
and that search, Debbie, that you're talking about that happened right then. Was that the second search, the third search of the ditches that happened? How many searches were done in the ditches?
I think they had officers walking in the ditches, seeing if they could see anything, but the major search was, like I said, about a week and a half after he was buried. and they were spraying the ditch down on the corner and trying to get car parts because the snowplow would have gone by and threw the snow in the ditches. So they thought by spraying it down, they would be able to find something in there. And they did. They found the majority of their car parts in there. But there were still car parts at the stop sign 3 miles up the road. So there definitely is car parts out there from that grill, but nobody would look for them.
Right. So I'm just trying to get my arms around how many searches there were, because if there was more than one, it just seems to me that there was a particular piece that they were really wanting to try and find, and how would they know there was a piece that they actually needed to look for?
Well, from what I understand, the grill parts come with a identifying number on them, and they were missing that piece. So I would see the police patrolling the area, the road. And I remember one time I seen an officer walking the road, and that was in between the time that he died and the time he was buried. But other than that, I don't recall much activity.
Well, it's unfortunate I guess we'll never know whether they did or didn't find that piece. I guess it could swing either way. Did you continue to find pieces in the spring?
I did not know. I didn't pursue it either about walking the ditches because Rick said that we were better off handing out the reward posters, and I didn't pursue it. I
Right.
trusted them.
Yeah.
I trusted them to. I didn't want to interfere with their job. I guess I kind of figured that they were doing this.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I can definitely see that. What else are you going to think? The police are here to help. So if people do have any information, you do have a Facebook group that does online research on this case, isn't there?
There is. It's called the Debi Hochstetler Hit and Run Theory Group. And you can certainly contact myself or any of the administrators on there.
And we'll leave a link to that Facebook group in the description of this video.
Okay.
Is there anything else? You've been pretty open with us, and we really appreciate that about please would somebody come forward and tell us what they know.
Right.
Is there anything else that you want people to know?
That Ricky and his family deserve the answers. It might not be what we want to hear, but we deserve the answers because it's not a death that can be explained. And I use the reference 2 weeks after my son was killed, 2 boys pulled out in front of a dump truck and they were killed. One of the boys, when he was a little shaver, I stood up in a wedding with. So I wanted to go out and pay my condolences to his parents. And on my way out there, I thought, these people right now have the source, the answers to begin their healing process. No, it's not going to be easy, but they have the answers. Where the longer the time went, more we were without answers. And now we're going to be 21 years and still nothing.
Well, I hope that you can get those answers because I think you deserve them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. I know this wasn't easy. I'm glad to some extent that at least talking about Ricky can help you remember the good things about him. It was great to hear what a strong
yeah.
relationship and a strong family you guys had. Does anyone on the panel have any closing comments?
Thank you so much, Debbie, for coming on and sharing your story with us. And I really hope that, I don't want to use the word closure like you said before, but I hope this brings you some answers at some point. I can't, as a mother, I can't imagine living through what you've lived through, but your strength is amazing. I admire you, and I really hope you get answers.
Oh, thank you. That really warms me.
Thank you.
I really
Thanks,
appreciate
Christy.
it.
Kelly?
Exactly what Christy just said. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I really hope that, putting it out there again will just reinforce everyone that if they know anything to come forward, just to give you that healing process to start. I agree with everything that everyone said, and thank you for allowing us to be a part of your story and journey so we can get it going out there again.
Absolutely. And if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to call me.
We will certainly do that, Debbie. Again, thank you for your time. And if there's
you're
anything that
welcome.
we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We do have an army of online sleuths that would like nothing better than to help expose corruption in the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department.
Thank you so much. I am so blessed to have all of you.
So with that, this has been a Foul Play production.